This is the story of a black student who was bullied because of his skin color. From the moment Jayden Miles stepped into Brookside College, he knew he was different. Not because he was new, not because he dressed differently, but because he was the only black student in a school where every other face was white. He was bullied, humiliated, and eventually expelled. But what they didn't know was Jayden Miles' true identity. Watch this story till the very end to see how Jayden alone took on the school and the government itself. The morning bell rang, and the halls of Brookside High School, Los Angeles, Southern California, buzzed with laughter and chatter. Students ran to their lockers, shoes tapping against the tiled floor. But today, something was different. A new, strange student walked in. Jayden Miles. He walked through the school doors, his hands tucked into his pockets. His dark brown eyes quietly studied the noisy crowd. He wasn't dressed in fancy clothes. No expensive sneakers or brand-name backpacks. Just simple jeans, a hoodie, and a quiet confidence. Some students glanced at him, whispering. Others looked away quickly. "Who's that?" a boy muttered. "Never seen him before," another replied. "He doesn't belong here." Jayden looked different from other students. The school was an exclusive institution, dominated by the children of wealthy billionaires and American aristocrats, with a faculty that reflected the same elite status. As the first and only black student to ever enroll, he was a lone figure in a world that had never been meant for him. Jayden had heard it all before. He was used to whispers, the stares, the feeling of being different, but he didn't react. He just kept walking, his face calm. But what the students at Brookside didn't know was that Jayden wasn't just any student. He was the son of Nathan Miles, a feared Mafia boss. And in this city, that name meant power. A name people feared. A name whispered in hushed voices behind closed doors. A man whose power reached into the darkest corners of Los Angeles. Nathan Miles was a man no one dared to cross. And now his son had just stepped into a school where no one knew who he was. Jayden walked to his locker, opened it, and placed his books inside. He could feel the stares, the judgment, the silent messages hidden behind smirks and whispers. Then he heard a voice shouting, "Hey, boy!" Jayden didn't turn immediately. He knew trouble when it came knocking. Standing behind him was Logan Carter, the school's biggest bully. He was tall for his age, with blonde hair that always looked messy but styled on purpose. His father is the president pro tempore of the United States Senate, who funded school events and sat with important people at big meetings. Logan walks round the school like he owned it and bullies other students without being questioned by the school authority, because of his father's status in the state. Jayden, however, wasn't like most students, despite his father being a mafia boss that owns a cartel of drugs and guns. He still is a very calm child. Logan stepped closer. "What's your name?" Jayden didn't answer right away. He turned his head slightly, meeting Logan's gaze. His eyes were calm and unreadable. Logan smirked. "You don't talk much, huh? That's fine. Just know this. This school has rules. You listen to me, you stay out of my way, and maybe, just maybe, I let you keep your head down." Silence stretched between them. Jayden just looked at him, didn't speak, didn't even blink. Just calm. That made Logan frown. He was used to students looking nervous, stuttering, or trying to avoid eye contact, but Jayden, he just stood there like Logan didn't matter. The bell rang again, signaling class time. Without a word, Jayden turned back to his locker, grabbed a notebook, and walked away as if Logan didn't exist. Logan stood frozen, his fists clenching at his sides. He had expected fear, submission, anything but this indifference. For the first time, Logan Carter felt something strange, something he didn't like. He felt humiliated, and he hated it. Jayden sat at the back of the classroom, his hands resting on his desk. He could feel the eyes of his classmates darting toward him every few minutes, but he ignored them. The teacher, Mrs. Thompson, discussed about long division, but Jayden wasn't listening. He was thinking about Logan Carter, the guy who approached him in the hallway. Back in his old school, he had dealt with students like Logan before, loud, arrogant, and always trying to prove something. But Jayden had learned early on that the best way to deal with a bully wasn't to fight them. It was to make them feel powerless. And that's exactly what he had done. Jayden knew Logan wasn't the type to let things go. He had seen that look before, the frustration of someone who wasn't used to being ignored. It wouldn't be the last time Logan tried to mess with him. Just while he was thinking about the whole thing, the lunch bell rang, snapping Jayden out of his thoughts. He stood up, headed to the cafeteria, and picked a tray. The lunchroom was loud, filled with students laughing, shouting, and moving from table to table. Jayden found an empty spot in the corner and sat down. He didn't expect company, but a shadow fell across his table. It was Logan, and he wasn't alone. Behind him stood two other boys, big, broad-shouldered students who looked like they were waiting for a command. Logan pulled out a chair and sat down across from Jayden, his smirk firmly in place. "You think you're tough, huh?" Logan said, placing his hands on the table and leaning in close. "Walking around here like you don't care about anything." Jayden took a bite of his sandwich unfazed. "I just came here to eat," he said. Logan's jaw tightened. "You don't just ignore me and walk away like that. You don't get to act like you're better than me." Jayden met his eyes. "I never said I was better than you. But if you're this mad, maybe you think I am." Logan's face turned red. The boys behind him tensed, waiting for his reaction. Jayden stayed calm. He knew Logan wouldn't hit him here, not in front of the teachers. Logan wasn't stupid. He was waiting for the right moment. A moment when there were nobody around. A moment when Jayden was alone. Jayden put down his sandwich and stood up. "Are we done here?" Logan smirked. "Not even close." Jayden nodded. "Didn't think so." He picked up his tray, walked past Logan and headed toward the exit. He didn't have to look back to know Logan was watching him, plotting his next move. Jayden's instincts told him that Logan wouldn't wait long to make his next move. Though he was scared at all, he knows how to respond to students like him who always want to get noticed and feel too important. After school that day, the campus had mostly emptied, leaving behind a quiet stillness. Jayden stepped out of the building, the late afternoon sun stretching long shadows across the pavement. Laughter and chatter faded in the distance as students hurried home, eager to leave the day behind. But Jayden lingered, his steps slow and deliberate. He could feel the footsteps of someone following him, but he wasn't even worried. He kept walking. "Hey, boy," Jayden sighed. He turned around slowly, finding Logan and his two goons standing there, blocking the sidewalk. "Told you we weren't done," Logan said, cracking his knuckles. Jayden glanced around. The teachers were inside. The buses had pulled away. It was just them. "You really want to do this?" Jayden asked. Logan grinned. "Nah, I just want to talk." While they were still talking, one of Logan's friends swung a punch at Jayden, but Jayden ducked, stepping back just in time. The student stumbled forward, losing balance. Jayden smirked. "You punch like a toddler." Logan's grin faded. "Get him." The second boy lunged. Jayden sidestepped, grabbed his wrist and twisted. The boy yelped and fell to his knees. Logan hesitated for a split second, long enough for Jayden to step closer. "Still want to do this?" Jayden asked, voice calm but sharp. Logan clenched his fists. "You don't know who you're messing with." Jayden leaned in. "Neither do you." Logan hesitated. Then, with a frustrated growl, he turned and stormed off, his goons scrambling after him. Logan felt so humiliated, although there were no students around to witness the humiliation and embarrassment he got. Jayden knew Logan wouldn't take his defeat lightly. Bullies like him never did. The next day at school, the air felt different, thicker, heavier. Whispers followed Jayden through the halls. Logan had spread his version of the story, twisting it to make himself look like the victim. Jayden ignored it. He walked to his locker unfazed until he noticed something that made him stop. His locker was slightly open. Jayden frowned. He always locked it. Slowly, he pulled the door open, and his stomach clenched. His books were torn, his notebook's pages ripped out and scattered. His backpack was dumped upside down, his belongings thrown carelessly around. A low chuckle sounded from behind him. Jayden turned to see Logan leaning against the lockers, arms crossed, a smug grin on his face. His 2 lackeys stood beside him, laughing. "Oops," Logan said mockingly. "Looks like someone had a little accident." Jayden took a deep breath, steadying himself. This was expected. Logan wanted a reaction. He wanted Jayden to snap, to lash out, so he could play the victim again. Jayden bent down, picking up his ruined belongings. "That the best you got?" he asked coolly. Logan's smile faltered just a little. "Oh, we're just getting started." Jayden stood, meeting Logan's gaze. "Good. So am I." Logan scoffed, but there was something behind his eyes. Uncertainty. Jayden was different. He didn't cower, didn't react the way Logan expected. The bell rang, signaling the start of class. Jayden calmly gathered his things, stuffing what was left into his bag before walking away. Logan and his goons watched him go, their expressions unreadable. Lunch came and Jayden sat alone at his usual spot. He didn't mind. He was used to it. But today someone approached his table. A girl. She had dark curls tied into a ponytail, sharp eyes that seemed to study him as she slid into the seat across from him. "You're either really brave or really stupid," she said, taking a bite of her apple. Jayden raised an eyebrow. "Haven't decided yet," she smirked. "I am Ava. I saw what Logan did to your locker." Jayden nodded. "Let me guess, you are here to warn me? Tell me to stay away from him?" "Nope," Ava said, tilting her head. "I'm here because I think you are interesting, and I like interesting fellows." Jayden looked at her. She didn't look like someone who ran with Logan's crowd. Her confidence felt different, sharper and more controlled. "You don't seem scared of him," Jayden noted. "I'm not," Ava replied, "because I know something he doesn't." Jayden leaned in slightly. "And what's that?" Ava smiled knowingly. "That you're going to destroy him." Jayden didn't respond, but for the first time since arriving at Brookside, he felt something he hadn't felt in a while. An ally. Jayden knew Logan wasn't the kind of guy to take humiliation lightly. That fight after school, it wasn't just about ego, it was about control, and Logan had lost it. The next morning, Jayden walked into Brookside High School with the same quiet confidence, but he could feel the shift in the air. The whispers were louder, the stares more intense. Logan must have spread the word about what happened. As Jayden reached his locker, a folded piece of paper fluttered to the ground. He picked it up and unfolded it. 3 words were scribbled inside. "You'll regret this." Jayden smirked. Threats didn't scare him, but they did mean one thing. Logan was planning something. "Rough morning already," a voice said beside him. Jayden turned to see Ava again. Jayden raised an eyebrow. "You keeping tabs on me?" Ava smiled. "What's your plan?" "Logan isn't going to let this go." Jayden stuffed the note in his pocket. "I figured." Ava studied him. "You're not scared, are you?" Jayden gave a small chuckle. "Should I be?" Ava tilted her head, then leaned in slightly. "Maybe not of Logan, but his dad? That's another story." Jayden's smirk faded. He had heard about Logan's father, who happened to be the president pro tempore of the United States Senate, but the rumors went deeper than that. Corruption, illegal deals, and people who disappeared without a trace. Ava noticed his reaction and nodded. "Yeah, you might want to start paying attention." Before Jayden could respond, the bell rang, and Ava disappeared into the crowd. He stood there for a moment, considering her words. By lunchtime, the tension had only grown thicker. As Jayden grabbed his tray and moved to sit alone, the entire cafeteria went silent. Then Logan walked in. But this time, he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a man in a dark suit. He had a sharp jawline, slicked back blonde hair, and an air of cold authority. He wasn't a teacher. He wasn't a parent. The man's icy blue eyes locked onto Jayden. Then, with a slow smirk, he lifted his hand and made a small, deliberate gesture. A warning. Jayden tightened his grip on his tray. This was bigger than just a schoolyard rivalry, and he had just stepped into dangerous territory. Jayden knew Logan wouldn't let things go, but he didn't expect him to go this far of involving someone who isn't even a student. The fight in the alley had left Logan humiliated in front of his friends, and Jayden had seen that look in his eyes before, the look of someone who was plotting revenge. The next morning, while Jayden was walking through the hallway, he heard a whisper. "You think you're smart, don't you?" Jayden turned around slowly and saw Logan standing with his usual crew, but today there were more of them. 5 boys, all bigger than before. Logan had called for reinforcements. "I don't think I'm smart, I just know how to handle guys like you," Jayden said calmly. Logan's face darkened. "We'll see about that." Before Jayden could react, one of the boys shoved him hard against the lockers. The metal rattled loudly, drawing the attention of students nearby. But no one stepped in. No one ever did when Logan was involved. Jayden took a breath. He wouldn't go down without a fight. "Hold him," Logan ordered. 2 of the boys grabbed Jayden's arms, pinning him against the lockers. Logan stepped closer, grinning. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Now, I get to return the favor." Jayden's mind worked fast. He could fight, but 5 against 1 was a losing battle. He needed a distraction. Just as Logan raised his fist, a sharp voice cut through the hallway. "What's going on here?" Mrs. Thompson, their teacher, stormed toward them, eyes blazing. Logan and his crew immediately stepped back, pretending nothing had happened. "Nothing, Mum," Logan said smoothly. "Just having a friendly conversation." Mrs. Thompson wasn't fooled. Her sharp eyes landed on Jayden, then back at Logan. "My classroom, now all of you." Jayden let out a slow breath. He had avoided a beatdown, for now. But he knew Logan wasn't done, and next time there might not be a teacher to stop him. As he walked toward class, he felt a shift inside him. He had spent years trying to stay under the radar, avoiding unnecessary fights, but Logan wasn't going to stop. Maybe it was time Jayden stopped playing defense. Maybe it was time to send a message Logan wouldn't forget. Jayden walked into school the next morning, his hands in his pockets, his mind sharp. He knew the fight with Logan wasn't over. If anything, it had only just begun. The whispers in the hall were louder today. Some students avoided looking at Jayden, while others glanced at him with curiosity. He wasn't sure if they were impressed or just waiting to see what would happen next. As Jayden reached his locker, he sensed someone approaching. He turned his head slightly and saw Logan striding toward him, flanked by his usual crew. This time, however, Logan wasn't smirking. His jaw was clenched, his fists balled at his sides. "You think this is funny?" Logan hissed as he stopped inches from Jayden. Jayden sighed, opening his locker. "Not particularly." "You made me look weak." "No," Jayden corrected. "You made yourself look weak." Logan's face darkened, and for a split second, Jayden thought he might swing at him right there. But Logan held back. There were too many eyes watching. Teachers stood nearby. He wouldn't be stupid enough to start something here. Instead, Logan leaned in, his voice low and full of venom. "You have no idea who you're messing with." Jayden didn't flinch. "Funny. I was just about to say the same thing." A tense silence stretched between them. Logan's fingers twitched, itching to react, but before he could, a teacher's voice cut through the air. "Everything all right here?" Logan stepped back, forcing a smirk. "Yeah, just welcoming the new student." At lunch, Jayden sat in his usual spot, eating quietly. Across the cafeteria, Logan sat with his crew, whispering furiously. Whatever they were plotting, it wasn't going to be good. Then something unexpected happened. A girl slid into the seat across from Jayden. He looked up, mildly surprised. She had curly black hair, bright brown eyes, and an easy confidence about her. He recognized her. Emma Carter, Logan's cousin. "Not what you expected, huh?" she said, smirking. Jayden took a sip of his juice. "Not really." "I saw what you did yesterday," Emma said, leaning forward. "Logan deserved it. But just so you know, he's not the type to let things go." Jayden raised an eyebrow. And you're warning me because... Emma shrugged. Because I hate my cousin. And because you seem interesting. Jayden studied her for a moment. He wasn't sure if he could trust her. The next day, Jayden sat at his desk, staring out the window as the rain tapped lightly against the glass. The last few days had been intense. Logan and his goons weren't backing down, but Jayden had made it clear he wasn't afraid of them. But something felt different today. He could sense it. The teacher's voice droned on in the background, but Jayden's mind was elsewhere. He caught glimpses of Logan from the corner of his eye. The bully wasn't smirking this time. He wasn't taunting or trying to pick a fight. He was whispering to his friends, throwing quick glances at Jayden. Jayden straightened in his chair, his instincts sharpening. He remembered what his father, Nathan Miles, always told him. A fight isn't always about fists. It's about control. And right now, Logan was trying to take control. The bell rang, snapping Jayden from his thoughts. Students grabbed their books and rushed into the hallway. Jayden moved with the crowd, keeping an eye on Logan. Then suddenly Jayden felt the shove before he saw it coming. Someone had tripped him from behind. He barely had time to catch himself before he slammed into an open locker. Laughter erupted around him. "Oops," Logan said, his voice dripping with fake innocence. "Didn't see you there." Jayden exhaled slowly, pushing himself up. He wasn't going to let this get to him. He wasn't giving Logan the satisfaction. "Still trying," Jayden said, brushing dust off his hoodie. "You're getting predictable." Logan's smirk twitched, just for a second. He didn't like that response. He wanted Jayden to lash out, to fight back in a way that would get him in trouble. But Jayden wasn't falling for it. Instead, Jayden turned and walked away. "Oh, you think you're smart, huh?" Logan called after him. "Think you're better than me?" Jayden didn't answer. He just walked away. But as he walked, he could hear Logan's voice again, this time lower, more serious. "All right then. If you won't fight me, maybe I'll find someone else to play with." Jayden froze. That was a threat. And not one aimed at him. He turned slowly, locking eyes with Logan. This time, he had found a new way to push Jayden's buttons. Jayden's fists clenched at his sides. He knew what Logan meant. Someone else was going to pay the price. And Jayden couldn't let that happen. But then, he didn't want to start a fight with anyone, because his father always told him, a wounded enemy is more dangerous than a fresh one. Desperation makes people reckless. And Logan was desperate. The next morning at school, Jayden felt the shift in the air. The whispers followed him down the hall. Students moved out of his way, watching him with wide eyes, but they weren't looking at him with fear or respect. They were looking at him like he was a criminal. Jayden narrowed his eyes. Something was wrong. Then he saw the principal standing by his locker. His arms were crossed, his face grim. "Jayden Miles," Principal Reynolds said, his voice firm. "Come with me. Now." Jayden didn't argue. He could see Logan smirking from across the hall, his arms crossed, his goons grinning beside him. Jayden followed the principal into his office. The door shut behind him with a heavy thud. "Do you want to tell me why I received multiple reports that you threatened Logan Carter and his friends?" Principal Reynolds asked, leaning forward in his chair. "Or why they have bruises and cuts, claiming you jumped them after school?" Jayden kept his expression calm. "I didn't do that." "Then explain the security footage." The principal turned the laptop on his desk around. The grainy black and white footage showed Logan and his friends approaching Jayden. But then the screen glitched, and the next frame showed Logan on the ground, his face twisted in pain. The angle didn't show Jayden's movements, it just made it look like he had attacked them without warning. Jayden clenched his fists. Logan had planned this well. He had tampered with the footage, making Jayden look like the aggressor. "This is a serious offense, Jayden," the principal continued. "Logan's father has already called the school board. He's demanding you be expelled." Jayden exhaled slowly. Logan hadn't just set him up for trouble, he was trying to get rid of him completely. "You're suspended for a week while we investigate," the principal declared. "Go home and we will call your parents." Jayden stood. He could argue, but it wouldn't matter. Logan had already won this round. He left the office without another word. Walking down the hallway, he felt the eyes on him again. But this time there were no whispers, just silence. He was already guilty in their eyes. As he stepped outside, Logan was waiting near the school gate, leaning against the fence with a victorious grin. "Told you," Logan taunted. "This is my school. You don't belong here." Jayden looked at him, his face unreadable. "Enjoy your win, Logan." "It won't last." Logan got angry and threw a punch at Jayden, but Jayden was quicker. He dodged to the side, sending Logan stumbling forward. One of Logan's goons tried to grab him, but Jayden twisted his arm, flipping him onto the ground. The other one hesitated, suddenly unsure. Logan recovered and charged again. This time, Jayden stood his ground. He ducked under Logan's punch and delivered a precise jab to his ribs. Logan gasped, backing away. "I don't want to fight," Jayden said calmly. "But I won't let you push me around." Logan glared at him, clutching his side. For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. Jayden turned and walked away, leaving Logan and his gang in stunned silence. A week had passed since the fight, and Jayden was back. The moment he stepped through the school doors, the energy shifted. Conversations hushed. Eyes followed him. Kids whispered to each other, their curiosity and anticipation thick in the air. Even the teachers gave him wary glances. Everyone wanted to see how Jayden would handle his return after the suspension. Jayden, as always, walked with his usual quiet confidence. No hesitation, no shame. He moved through the halls like nothing had changed, like he hadn't just shaken up the entire school's power structure. But things were different now. Logan wasn't standing at his usual spot, his posture tense, his expression unreadable. Jayden opened his locker, placing his books inside, when a familiar voice broke the silence. "Back already?" Ava Carter, Logan's cousin, leaned casually against the lockers next to him, arms crossed. "Thought you'd be gone longer." Jayden glanced at her. "I don't run from things." Ava smirked. "I figured. You made quite the impact before you left. People are still talking about it, about you, about Logan." Jayden simply shrugged. "It was never about him." Ava tilted her head, studying him. "Maybe not for you, but for the rest of the school? That fight changed everything. Logan's not the same." Jayden didn't respond, but he didn't need to. The proof was in the way kids moved around him differently now. Less hostility, more caution, more respect. Some even nodded at him in silent acknowledgement. Then a voice cut through the air. "Jayden." Logan stood a few feet away, watching him. The usual smirk was gone, replaced with something else. Uncertainty, frustration, maybe even resentment. Jayden turned fully to face him, waiting. The tension in the hall grew thick, students watching with bated breath. Logan clenched his jaw. "I don't lose." Jayden held his gaze, unshaken. "Then maybe you should stop treating everything like a competition." For a moment, Logan said nothing. Then, with a huff, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Ava let out a low whistle. That might be the first time he's ever backed down from a fight. Jayden closed his locker. Maybe he's finally learning. Ava watched him for a beat, then smiled. "You're interesting, Jayden Miles." Jayden didn't respond. He just walked off, leaving behind a school that would never see him the same way again. Logan might have walked away that day, but inside he was burning. And when Logan Carter wanted revenge, he goes as far as doing dangerous things to get back at anyone. The next morning, his father, Richard Carter, arrived at the school. Dressed in a sharp suit, he walked into the principal's office with an air of authority that made even the teachers nervous. Logan had reported Jayden to his father as someone who challenges him in school and as well insult their family, without knowing who his father is. "I want that boy expelled," Richard said, his voice cold and firm. "Jayden Miles doesn't belong in this school." The principal and school board members exchanged worried glances. "Sir, Jayden may have been involved in a fight, but we've already given him a suspension. Expelling him seems..." "Either you expel him, or I pull all my funding from this school," Richard interrupted, his eyes sharp. No more donations, no more aid, no more special programs. The room fell silent. The school management heavily relied on the Carter family's money. "Sir, please reconsider," one of the board members pleaded. "This could impact teachers who has relied on your good deeds and help towards us." Richard leaned forward. "Then make the right choice. Get rid of the boy." No one in that room knew Jayden's true identity. To them, he was just another student, a nobody. Days turned into weeks, and whispers filled the halls of Brookside High School. Everyone sensed the shift. The teachers walked on eggshells, students exchanged uncertain glances, and the school management held countless closed-door meetings, and it had everything to do with Jayden Miles. Richard Carter's threat loomed over the school like a storm cloud. The Carter family's money had built the big belly of many teachers in the school, including the principal who is so corrupt. They knew if they don't expel Jayden Miles, the money will stop coming. But they couldn't just do it outright. There had to be a reason, a justification. They needed to make it look like Jayden had brought this upon himself. Some teachers who had long benefited from the Carter family's wealth quietly took on a new assignment. Using advanced software, they doctored videos, carefully manipulated clips showing Jayden bullying Logan and other students. Footage of harmless moments was twisted to look sinister. A casual push in the hallway became an act of aggression. A heated argument was altered to appear as a one-sided attack. By the time they were done, the videos painted a compelling story, one where Jayden was not just a troublemaker, but a relentless bully. The evidence was presented to the school Senate committee. A formal hearing was scheduled, and Jayden was invited for the hearing. On the day of the hearing, teachers, school board members, and student representatives gathered in the assembly hall. And Jayden sat at the center of the room, his posture calm. He knew this wasn't a trial. It was an execution. The committee played the doctored footage on the large screen. Gasps echoed through the room as students and faculty watched in shock. The Jayden in the videos was unrecognizable, a bully who shoved, taunted, and tormented. It was all an illusion, but to those unaware of the deception, it was damning evidence. Jayden remained still, his face betraying nothing. "Do you deny these actions?" the committee had asked, his voice heavy with judgment. Jayden could have argued. He could have pointed out the inconsistencies, demanded a forensic review. But he knew the truth didn't matter. The decision had already been made. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling softly. "No, I don't." The committee members exchanged glances. His lack of protest only confirmed their decision. After a brief deliberation, the verdict was delivered. Jayden Miles, due to repeated violations of school conduct and acts of aggression towards fellow students, you are hereby expelled from Brookside High School. Silence followed. Jayden rose from his chair. He glanced around the room, meeting the eyes of his so-called judges. Some looked triumphant. Others avoided his gaze, knowing deep down this was wrong. He turned and slowly walked out, his steps steady. Jayden walked back home feeling so sad. He met his father in the sitting room having discussion with business partners. He silently placed the expulsion letter on the dinner table and entered his room. Later that evening, his father, Nathan Miles, saw the letter. He picked it up and read it. "What happened, son?" Nathan asked, his voice calm yet laced with a dangerous edge. Jayden shrugged. Logan and his father threatened the school to expel. Nathan's grip on the letter tightened. The Carters thought they were untouchable. They think money and influence could dictate the fate of anyone they pleased. But they had made one fatal mistake. They didn't know who they were dealing with. By the next morning, Nathan Miles arrived at Brookside High School in a convoy of black SUVs, pulled up in front of the school, tinted windows reflecting the stunned faces of students and staff alike. The doors opened in unison, and several men in black suits stepped out. They weren't just bodyguards. They were enforcers, men who could make entire organizations tremble with a mere glance. Nathan stepped out last, adjusting his tailored suit. His presence alone was. Parents, teachers, and students stood frozen, unsure of what was happening. The principal, Mr. Harrington, was already waiting by the entrance, his face pale. Mr. Miles, Nathan didn't acknowledge his stammering. He walked past him, his bodyguards flanking him as he entered the school, and made his way to the administrative office. The teachers inside turned, their faces drained of colour. "Who approved my son's expulsion?" Nathan's voice was eerily calm, yet the weight of his words made the air thick with fear. The room fell into silence. No one dared to answer. Nathan stepped closer, his gaze scanning every face. "I asked a question. I expect an answer." The principal swallowed hard. "Mr. Miles, we didn't know." "That my son is my son," Nathan finished for him. He let out a dry chuckle, though there was no amusement in it. "So, let me understand this. A school that I helped fund, a school that exists because of my silent contributions, dared to throw my son out because of some fabricated evidence." At that moment, the teachers who had doctored the fake videos broke. The fear in the room was suffocating. One by one, they stepped forward, their voices shaking as they confessed. They admitted to manipulating the footage, to bending under the pressure of Richard Carter's demands. "Please, Mr. Miles," one of them pleaded. "We had no choice. He threatened to pull funding." Nathan gave them a long, assessing look. Then he turned to Mr. Harrington. "You will reinstate my son immediately." The principal, drenched in sweat, nodded frantically. "Yes, of course." "Right away." Nathan exhaled, then turned toward the door. Before he left, he glanced back. "And as for Richard Carter, he will learn soon enough what happens when you threaten a Miles." With that, Nathan Miles walked out, leaving behind a room full of people who would never dare cross his family again. The news of what happened in the school that day spread like wildfire. Within hours, the entire community was buzzing with the gossips. Reports surfaced exposing the corruption behind Jayden's expulsion, and the deeper journalists dug, the more they uncovered shocking truths. Richard Carter had been using his wealth and influence to manipulate the school system, bribing teachers to cover up his son's history of bullying. The media pounced. News channels broadcasted damning evidence, showing how Richard Carter had used taxpayer money to keep Logan out of trouble while other students suffered in silence. Parents who had once feared speaking out now found their voices, sharing their children's experiences of being tormented by Logan with no repercussions. Outrage erupted. Social media exploded with calls for justice, and protests formed outside the school district's headquarters. Hashtags like #JusticeForJayden and #expelled. Logan flooded the internet, demanding accountability. It even affected his father's political career. As a sitting member of the state Senate, found himself at the center of a scandal too big to contain. His opponents seized the opportunity, pushing for investigations into his misuse of funds. The Ethics Committee launched a formal inquiry, and within days, impeachment proceedings began. As the walls closed in, Carter tried to fight back. He denied the allegations, called the reports fabricated nonsense, and even accused Nathan Miles of orchestrating a smear campaign. But the evidence was undeniable. Video clips, whistleblower testimonies, financial records. It was all there, laid bare for the world to see. The governor himself released a statement condemning Carter's actions, calling for his immediate resignation. Under immense pressure, Carter had no choice but to step down. His reputation was in ruins, his political career in ashes. The once powerful man who had dictated the fates of so many now found himself a pariah. Logan, too, faced the consequences. With his father disgraced and their family fortune under scrutiny, the school expelled him permanently. Former friends distanced themselves, and even the kids who once followed his lead turned their backs on him. Without his father's influence, Logan was just another outcast. Meanwhile, Jayden Miles returned to school, not as a victim, but as someone who had defied the system and won. His presence alone was enough to silence those who once whispered behind his back. He didn't need to seek revenge. The truth had done that for him. And as for Nathan Miles, he watched it all unfold with quiet satisfaction. He had done nothing but reveal the truth. And sometimes, the truth was the most dangerous weapon of all. This story highlights how corruption, bullying, and abuse of power eventually lead to downfall. Logan and his father thought wealth could protect them, but their lies collapsed under the weight of the truth. Jayden's story proves that justice prevails, and no one is truly untouchable. Bullying, as seen in Logan's case, not only harms the victim, but also destroys the bully when accountability comes knocking. Power should never be a shield for wrongdoing, and those who manipulate the system for personal gain will one day face the consequences. In the end, honesty, courage, and standing up against injustice will always triumph. If you enjoyed this thrilling story of justice, power, and redemption, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more exciting content. Till we'll meet again, stay blessed.